Welcome back to another video here on Nonstop Driving. Today we have this Mini Cooper SE with the facelifted version of 2021. We're going to take a look at it and see if it is the perfect city car for you to get still in 2021, or 2022 actually. So let's get into the video and look at it. So what is new with the facelifted version of the 2021 model? So the first thing you're going to notice is there's a couple of different terms for the car. I've listed all of them on the side, which is going to set you back between $0 and all the way up to 4,200 euros. This car is going to set you back around 32,000 in standard configuration, up to around 40,000. So there's a couple of things that are new. For instance, you have all your black exterior now instead of having it all in chrome. You can also get the surrounding of the lights in black, and also the inside of the light is black, and also the light is standard LED, which is nice. On the side you do have some intakes, which is some aerodynamic features which go back to the wheel and also lowers the CV value of the car. Up here we do have some unnecessary decoration, I guess, because it doesn't actually provide any aerodynamic changes, because they obviously have your E-motor in there, so it doesn't really need that cooling, and that thing doesn't even go through, so it's actually closed. Up here you have your nozzles, which are high-powered spraying capacity for your windshield wipers, and those things blow you away. It's actually insane. And then down here you also have a little bit of grille, which obviously doesn't provide anything because you don't need that in an electric vehicle. So let's move on to the side now. Moving on over to the side, the first thing we're going to talk about is the color. This is the British Green Racing color, which is a nice color. There's a total of three new colors in the facelifted model of 2021, which is gray, blue, and also the yellow color. Also, you have your rims. There's also a set of 5 new rims that you can get with the facelifted model, and this one is 16 or 17 inches. This one is 17 inches, which does look pretty nice, and those are also rims that you can get optionally. Up here we have our S logo for the model with a nice little, it looks like a carbon fiber kind of bit that they're trying to put on there, which doesn't look bad. Up here we have our pretty round, which is standard for Mini, our side mirrors. And moving on further, we have our keyless go entry with that beautiful button right there, and also the chrome entrance pull bar, whatever you want to call it. And then up here we do have, this is the only thing, if you go for an all black out kind of exterior color, this is still going to be chrome wherever you go, so you can't actually get this in black. That's the only thing that is not a changeable chrome into black color in here. Up here we also, or down here, we have our charging port, which is capable of charging, or it has a capacity of 36.9, if I'm not totally mistaken, kilowatt an hour battery, and you can charge that at a 50 kilowatt an hour charging station, which is gonna take around 38 minutes. But you can also charge it at your wall box, which is going to take 420 hours or 4 hours and 20 minutes. Moving on to the back, the first thing you can notice is your standard Union jack, which for the taillights, which I like. That's one thing I like about the Minis, are always your Union jack taillights, because I do think they look pretty nice, and they are pretty integrated very nicely. Obviously down here we have a Cooper S for the S version, or the electric version, with our logo for your electric vehicle down here as well. Up here we do have a little of a lip in the back, which is kind of a spoiler with your antenna, and as you know from the BMW video, I hate antennas, so I think they just make it look very unaesthetic and it doesn't please me at all. And down here we have our another set of lights for your fog lights actually. And again, you have your Union jack, which I like a lot, and also a couple of bumps for your parking sensors. Let's take a look at the trunk to see how much space we have in a Mini, because a Mini doesn't usually have that much space, and the same goes for this one. You have around 211 liters of volume without having the seats folded over. You can flip them over with the lever on the top. You just flick it up and then you flip it over, which is going to enable you to have around 731 liters in there, which is not bad. It's also not great, but for a city car that is only around 3 meters and 80 long and 1.43 meters tall, and also 1.73 meters wide, it's not that bad, because obviously it's a perfect city car when it comes to that for its size. So let's go into the back seat and check that out. Moving on to the back seat, which I'm going to try to get into. The first thing you notice when you open the door, you don't have any frames on the windows. In the front, well, those are the only doors, because you don't have doors in here, which is the main thing about this car. Trying to get in the back seat, which I'm going to try now, is the most painful thing you can probably face in your life. First of all, you obviously flip the lever and then try to get in the back. There we go. I'm in the back now, which is not that bad. But then when you flip it, oh, whew, okay. Well, the seat is all the way back now, but there is basically no space in here, which is not the greatest thing. But what you have in here is Harman Kardon sound system, and also a cup holder, and some pretty comfortable seats actually. But trying to sit in here for a longer time is not the best thing. But again, the car is made for city driving, so you could probably fit your children in here pretty nicely. They're gonna have a lot of space in here. But other than that, for a person my size, there's no space in there for them for more than like 20 minutes. Other than that, you have a sunroof up here, which is optional, which is pretty nice. Let's go into the front and see how that looks. Let me try to get out now. Scheiße. Alter Junge. Das ist mal eine Geburt, ne? Alter. Das muss nicht nochmal sein. Welcome to the front of the Mini Cooper SE. The first thing you notice when you actually get into the car is you have your logo on the side right there. Other than that, everything in here is asymmetrical. You do not have anything that is closely to being non-circular, which is pretty interesting. So everything in here is a circle, which is obviously Mini's thing. You have your thing in the front, which is a circular display with your stuff in there, which is a touchscreen, which is pretty nice, and also shows some, for instance, your heating stuff and stuff like in there. But in general, it kind of feels like an aircraft in here with all your like little switches you have in here, which I like because I'm an aircraft fan. That sounds pretty nerdy, but I do like those things. So you do have all your switches in here. You can obviously flip this thing back so you can have some more space in here. You have your lever, which is pretty upright and pretty big, in my opinion, in the front here. But you have your reverse, neutral, and drive in there. Obviously, you can't put that into like a neutral kind of thing where you can like manually switch through the gears because it's obviously an electric car. But you have your air conditioning, and also the quality not the greatest. For instance, down here you can just move that thing up and down, which is not the greatest. And down here we have, obviously you can tell that it is BMW with the exact same layout as to the BMW 218i that we reviewed, which you can check out up there if you want to. And then up here we also have some pretty nice feature where you can put your phone in there and you can have inductive loading, and it does fit an iPhone 13, which is pretty big, so that is pretty nice. But if you have an iPhone Pro Max, I don't think you're gonna be able to fit that in there. That's not gonna fit, but it does load, which is nice. Ooh, jeez. We have a nice steering wheel. Instead of having buttons in here, we actually have one like going through kind of interface, which is pretty nice. So you have buttons, but they're all like on the same level, and it just makes it feel pretty nice. You can't move over them and then all like accidentally touch them or move them in like a VW Golf. And also you have a pretty small and circular, once again, display up here, which shows you all the basic stuff, and also heads-up display on the front. And also the panoramic view window, you can obviously change that by flipping this lever and then moving it backwards, which is pretty nice. And that is basically it when it comes to all the little features. But the seats in here are pretty comfortable. You do have this kind of, I don't know exactly what it is, but it feels pretty nice. And one thing you gotta get used to is they are pretty narrow. The seats are actually pretty tight, but they do fit to your body pretty well, which is nice. And again, Harman Kardon sound system and stuff like that. So I guess we could take a look at the infotainment system for a second. So we're gonna change the camera and look at that. Let's take a look at the infotainment system, which starts up very quickly in like 2 seconds comparing to some other car companies, which I'm not gonna name. But it's very responsive as well. One thing that is pretty nice, when you change into the green mode, which you can select via your drive modes, you can customize your green mode, which is, for instance, you can customize when when you get a notification of when you're going too fast and no longer using your most efficiency. For instance, it shows you if you're going 120 kilometers, you have an efficiency of 93%. If you have if you drive at, let's say, 110, which takes a long time to get to, I just realized, you have an efficiency of 95%, which is pretty nice. It shows you that, and you also have your climate, you have green climate control and stuff like that. When you go into the e-drive, it also shows you your potential reach of your electric motor, which is 107 kilometers. We could get 6 kilometers more if we turn the air conditioning off. So if you turn that off, you can see it goes to 113 kilometers, which is pretty nice. It's just a couple of nice features I like. But again, it's very intuitive and also pretty responsive, which I'm a big fan of. If you go into your navigation, you can obviously change that. And again, like I said, it is pretty intuitive and very responsive. So I'm a big fan of that. If you take a look at the display of the driving control, actually, it also is pretty intuitive and nicely made. You can see your charge on the right side, and then also your recuperation in there as well, which is pretty nice. But the one thing I'm not a big fan of is that the middle screen is not actually as highly detailed as the ones on the side. It does look pretty pixelated, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but it looks pretty nice in general with the circular kind of view which you have in there, which is decent. What I think we're going to do now is take it for a spin. Let's take the Mini Cooper SE for a spin. So we flip this lever and we get that beautiful sound. Then you obviously have your lever, which you got to put into a drive and release the parking brake by pressing down on it. And then we can take it for a, listen to that. We can take it for a drive. So we're just going to take it for a little drive here. We do have a heads-up display on the front, which is pretty nice. The first thing you notice is that the steering wheel does feel pretty nice in your hands. It is kind of, it does actually feel, ooh, that recuperation is pretty strong though. That's one thing you can actually change is the recuperation, because that is on full right now, so you can change it to make it less or more by pressing the button down here. So right here is the highest, and then also you can put it into your lowest, and that just feels like you're cruising along now with a little bit of recuperation in there. We're going to test the turn radius on here, so it's a narrow road for probably like 2 cars in there. Let's just double check there's nothing behind us, and let's see how good the turn radius is. That sounds great. For being such a small car, the turn radius is actually not the greatest. It does take a lot of turning if you're going on a small road. The grass is an obstacle, I guess. Okay, let's go into the sport mode because we're going to go into the Bundesstraße, or Landstraße actually, not a Bundesstraße, I'm stupid. So let's turn and let's just see how good it comes when it comes to the acceleration. So the 0 to 100 is 7.3 seconds, which is decent. Obviously it's an electric car, but in the city that's completely good for you if you're going at, well, in the city you're not going to go more than 50 kilometers an hour, but it does actually feel pretty stable when going at higher speeds. We're going 110 right now and it does feel pretty stable. Obviously the car has a Vmax of 150, which is not the highest, because it's also limited to that with that battery. If you're going at 150 on the Autobahn, you're going to be out of battery in like a couple of minutes. It's like driving with the Bugatti Chiron and then you're just out of fuel in like a millisecond when you're going at 300, 400 kilometers an hour. But it does feel pretty stable, and the steering does actually get a little bit directer when you're going into the sport mode. Also, when driving it in town, it is pretty nice. You can turn that recuperation up to a little bit of higher amount, just so you have a lot of more range. So what you can probably expect to get is a range between 200 to 220 kilometers. The range that they say is around 237 kilometers, I'm not totally mistaken, with a 32.6 kilowatt an hour battery, which does take a little bit to charge, obviously, because it's, well, if you're going at 50 kilowatts an hour, 38 minutes is not bad. But when you're driving, an average German driver is going to drive it for around 40 kilometers a day. That's what the average German drives a day, and if you drive that, you can just plug it in at home and charge it overnight with a 4.2 or 4.5 hours. But in general, I think it's a pretty nice car when it comes to the city driving. You do have pretty good all surround views. It's not that bad, as I saw a lot of reviews actually saying that the surrounding view is not that great. I think it's pretty decent. The one thing you notice is the suspension is pretty stiff though. You feel every single bump that you go over. Would I suggest getting this car in the city? I think it's a good car if you're trying to get one, but again, the price is a little bit high for the battery total package that you get, but again, 200 kilometers for city driving is completely enough. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.